As the One Piece TCG soars to all-time highs, every single box, every single card has hit an all-time high. That follows up by One Piece being in some serious trouble, and I'll explain in this video why. And I'll also explain a solution on how Bandai can fix it. But firstly, we need to talk about the trouble One Piece TCG is actually in. Well, the trouble that it's in is that the One Piece TCG is unlike many other TCGs. It is made up of mostly players. There was a poll not too long ago on Reddit and someone asked, do you collect One Piece, do you play One Piece, or do you do both? And 75% of people answered that they either play it or they play it and both collect it. Meaning 75% of the audience made up of One Piece TCG are players, people who actually actively play the game. Now the problem is that because booster boxes have gotten so expensive, it has priced a lot of these people out. And your issue is that these people are going to stop playing the card game. They are going to leave. Now a lot of those people will eventually come back when the card game has cooled off, but the problem is you're going to lose a lot of those hardcore fans and they're going to move on to something like Riftbound or something else that they can play. Now this is a problem, but then how is the One Piece TCG doing so well? Well, the reason why it's doing so well is because OP13 came out and it ignited this excitement for expensive and valuable cards for One Piece. Now, the problem about this isn't sustainable. If your trading card game is doing really, really well because there's insanely expensive prices, it generally isn't really a good sign long term. Generally, having those steady returns is really good, but having people selling $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 Pokemon collections to jump ship to One Piece is not healthy for the card game at all. All that's happening is prices are artificially being pumped to the sky, but the problem is what happens when there's the new cool hot thing? What happens when there's that next item that's really cool? What happens when there's that next set that is really expensive in Magic the Gathering or in Pokemon or in Riftbound? Now, this is not the first time this has happened. This is actually the second time this has happened. So the first time this happened was with OP05. When OP05 came out, it exploded One Piece, but it did something that hasn't really happened in the past. People jumped ship. People moved from other trading card games to One Piece. They didn't give it a shot. They didn't try it out. They actually jumped ship to it. And if you were there, you would remember that people stopped collecting Pokemon and then moved, or they stopped collecting Magic and moved to One Piece. The problem was that once the excitement of valuable cards settled down, once sets went back to normal, these people left. However, because it made up so much of the audience and because people actually jumped ship, what happened? Everything pumped up really, really expensive and they plummeted. You had boxes like OP01, a set that people thought was safe. You had White Bottom going from near $500 to $200. You had boxes like OP05 that peaked a little over $300 and it went down low of $130. It wasn't a 30% dip downwards. It wasn't a 40%. It was over 50%. And why? The reason why is because at the time, most of the audience was made up of people obsessed with value. In order to value the potential of a trading card game, you need to look at the audience and what it is made up of. If it's made up of people who open up boxes, that's great. That means that the supply is deflationary and the boxes can overall shrink the supply. And then eventually the few collectors that don't actually play the card game, about 25% of the audience, will then pick up the boxes later. Once they are quite expensive, they'll collect the boxes, they'll open up the boxes, chasing that expensive chase, right? So you have a really healthy situation. But the problem is when it's made up of people obsessed with the value, then when there's another trading card game that is bigger and better, or when just the latest sets fizzle out, what happens is that once again, these people jumped ship. They did not give it a shot. See, this is the difference, is sets like Final Fantasy collector boxes. We will remember those. Those are down, I want to say about like 40% from its all-time high, maybe even 50% in some areas. I just want to say as well, if you are new, make sure to subscribe and make sure to join the Discord server. Links are in the description. We talk about One Piece investing, we talk about Pokemon investing, and we have plenty of good conversations there. I talk there every single day, so make sure to join that. I'll see you there. But it's down about 30 to 40% across the board, the collector boxes. Now, this is the thing about Final Fantasy, is people opened it up, people weren't collectors of Magic the Gathering, they just opened it up because it had a 100 grand card inside, it just had an expensive card. But the thing is, people didn't jump ship. People didn't sell all their Pokemon to buy Final Fantasy, so it pumped up to about 15, 16, 1700, but it's not like it went to $3,000. No, it just went to these ridiculous prices, but people weren't jumping ship. That's the difference. People were just trying it out. With One Piece, it's a bit different. I see tons of people around me, whether it be Facebook, Reddit, Discord, wherever it may be, people are selling massive collections of other trading card games. I know some people that have sold 100 grand Pokemon collections to chuck it all into One Piece. Now, that's great for the One Piece TCG initially, but when everybody starts doing it, that's where you have a problem, right? For the early birds who do it, great. Good job. But for all of the people who are doing it really late, what they're doing is they're just pumping up prices to levels that aren't sustainable. So you're going to have a lot of your loyal audience leave. A lot of them are going to be fed up. And then you're going to have pretty much just the remaining bunch is going to be a bunch of people who are obsessed with value. But the second all these hot sets stop coming out and it's just normal sets, then you're going to have a problem where people rapidly dump it. That's exactly what happened when OPO 6, 7, and EBO 1 came out. It was crap set after crap set after crap set. Well, look, they weren't necessarily bad, but really good sets are sets like EBO 2, OPO 9, PRBO2, OPO5, like those are pretty good sets. They're definitely up there. But then there's really bad sets like OPO6, which doesn't really have much for it. Then OPO7, which was cheap for the longest time. EBO1 was cheap for so long. I'm pretty sure it was actually the cheapest box when it came out. At least in Australia, it was dirt cheap. No one wanted it. Now, the problem is that people looked at that and they went like, where's the valuable cards? Where's the $3,000 Gear 5 Luffy's? I'm not seeing any of them, so I'm out. So all these people rapidly dumped, and you can look at price charting and you can see the aftermath. It was brutal. Some sets over-halved. Once again, OPO1, it went from quite literally about $500 a white bottom to $200. That is so bad. I remember picking up a white bottom for 400 USD. That box, at least in Australia, ran all the way up to about $600. And then only a couple months later, it plummeted in price and everybody was panicking. And I went down to pretty much a break-even price. Now, there is a premium in Australia, but it jumped up pretty much over doubled, and then okay, maybe not over doubled, but almost doubled, and then it went back to the price that I paid for it. That is something to really think about. You need to look at what the audience is made up of, and right now greed is at an all-time high, and there are not many things worth buying. Like anytime I talk about a box, I'd say like, yeah, OPO 9 is worth buying at $240 a box. Okay, well now that's almost $700 a box. Yeah, okay, EBO2, I mean, it's a pretty solid buy. I'd probably pick it up if you can. I said that like a couple weeks ago when it was $320. Now it's like over $600. So you're seeing these prices that took older boxes like 2 to 3 years to make, and you're seeing them happen in a couple months. So that's definitely something to think about. Now, I don't think it will kill the TCG. I don't think that's going to happen. What I think is going to happen is you're just going to see a massive crash in the future. I'm not saying it'll happen at these prices. Maybe they'll go up more, or maybe they'll go up a little bit more. But what I do know is every single time it does go up, it becomes more like a bubble. So you don't want an item to go up too much in a short period of time. It's very entertaining to watch. It's very cool to watch, but it doesn't really become sustainable. And then a lot of time, people will just get fed up. People will leave the hobby. And then that combined with the reprint will then crash the price, versus if it just never hit that price, then instead it would just slowly but steadily go up a little bit more healthy. Now, once again, I don't think this will affect the price long term. I don't think it will realistically matter in 10 years time, but I definitely think in this year, next year, the year after that, I think it will 100% affect that in the future. And the reason why is after OPO 5 came out and crashed, it was about a 400 to 500 day winter, maybe even longer. It could actually have been like 600 days that One Piece just did not move at all. There was no life in the trading card game, so that is definitely my concern there. Boxes going from, $300, like OP13 is fair enough. It going to $500 is way too much. So that is just a concern that I do have. I'm not saying that will happen, but I don't think it's something that should be ruled out, because there is a bit of a pattern where people think that it's different this time, but then generally it still repeats itself. Now let's talk about the solution. Let's talk about how Bandai can fix this. First of all, I think the best way they can fix this is do something similar than that what they did with EBO1. EBO1 was full of so many playable cards, but the manga wasn't really that popular at the time, and there weren't many popular cards at all. So it was basically just a player's box. So it actually got ripped so heavily. It's actually one of the rarest boxes now. However, when it came out, it was great for players because they could open it up, they could play with the cards, but they didn't have to worry about them being super expensive, and they didn't have to worry about it having like some crazy mangas that would drive up the price. So it was really good for players. So number one, what they should do is make a box that they rapidly will reprint that is great for players. Make sure that the cards don't have value. Try to prevent them from being valuable. You just need to keep the players. If you can keep players in the industry, you're absolutely laughing. That is the key to do it. See, with Pokemon, it's not as important because Pokemon, first of all, the actual card game, it's a lot cheaper to play. It's made of mostly base cards and EXs, so it's not really as complicated as One Piece. But also another thing with Pokemon is that it doesn't have as many, like, as high of a percentage as players. It's mainly collectors. Most people in Pokemon are collectors. With One Piece, because most of them are actually playing the card game, you do not want to lose such a fat portion of your, like, audience, and you also don't want to lose your audience that will stick around when the times are tough. You don't want to lose your audience that will stick around when boxes are $120 and the sets aren't that good. You want those people to be fed and you want those people to be happy. Number two, they should announce that they are rapidly reprinting booster boxes. They should announce that they are trying to currently fix on this. The reason why is we can look at what Pokemon did with Prismatic Evolutions. Now, they did an absolutely horseshit job, but the thing is, if the prices of MSRP is the same, look at Prismatic, ETBs are $120. That's 2x MSRP. If OP13 was 2x MSRP, that's what, like 260, 270, 280, around that range? That's far better than $500 or $550. So if they can get the same like ratio that Pokemon is at, we're golden. Now, what Pokemon did was they made a press release saying, hey guys, we are actively reprinting this extremely hot set. We're doing everything in our power to, print it as much as possible. We are printing at maximum capacity. If Bandai do that, that would be great. Right now, at least, unless they've done anything in the last day that I haven't seen, they haven't really talked about it that much. They haven't really said guys, we're max printing these, we're printing these at maximum capacity. No, they just haven't really been that vocal about it. And that's a bit of a problem because it creates fear that the prices that we're seeing right now are going to be the cheapest it's ever going to be. So number two is make a press release. Actually talk about it. Make sure that people know, hey, reprints are coming. So number three is also make sure to avoid those older sets like OP05. They have done their time. They deserve to be out of print and just leave them alone. Focus on, in my opinion, OP09 and sooner. OP09 is a little over 1 year old. It should not be near $700 booster box. That should not be the case. So in my opinion, I think what they should do is they should reprint all of those really hot sets. And the reason is because Bandai, at least with One Piece, they have a history of not printing sets a lot. So the thing is, people are holding on to this idea that this is the cheapest it's ever going to be. But even if they do small reprints of every single set, it'll help massively, and the reason why is people will get scared. They'll go oh, are they actually reprinting this? Because the idea of reprints scares people, but it only scares people once it actually happens. If it doesn't happen, people just get so confident it'll never happen. It's the same thing with Pokemon. People say to me, they say, oh, this item got reprinted. Oh, I'm going to sell it. It got reprinted. Yeah, dude, it's in print. What do you expect? Do you just expect them to not reprint it? That makes no sense. But the thing is, if they actually reprint these items, then it will cause this effect where people will then all of a sudden not pay $500 for brand new sets. That's once again absolutely ridiculous. And then moving on, I think that they should just stop making really good sets. Go back to one manga sets. Calm it down a bit. Here's the thing, One Piece, you're going to make a lot of money because no matter what you bring out for the next year or so, people are going to be eating up anything you bring out. So it doesn't realistically matter. You bring out a really good set, you bring out a really bad set, it's going to sell out either way. I don't think you really care what the secondary market is after you sell the boxes, right? Now, of course, in the long run, Better secondary value means that people are more likely to buy it, so they would care. But for this time, not really. If every single set is selling out, they don't have to make really good sets. They can just make horse crap sets. Now, I'm sure Bandai are going to do something to fix the situation that we're in, but the prices that we're at right now is not enjoyable for anybody. If you're trying to invest in One Piece, these prices are not worth buying at. EBO2 at $600 or $650 is ridiculous. OP13, it's a phenomenal set, don't get me wrong, but it is still a brand new set and is still in print. And if you've seen what happened to OP05, it went from $300 to $130. OP05 is as fragile as the thinnest branch you can think of. If they reprint that, it could trickle it down straight to $300, which is still so much. But if you're buying at these prices, that would near half what your holdings is. If you're paying $500, $550, $600, and it goes to $300, I think that's quite possible. I'm not saying OP13 will go back to MSRP, but it's actually really doable for them to bring it down because the supply is so dry. But if they ever so slightly quench that supply, yeah, it could do some serious numbers. I don't think that it would then bring it down to MSRP, but at least $300. I think that could definitely happen. Collectors are happy because they have to pay a premium, but it's worth it. OP13 at $300 is great. Then players are happy because they can get the boxes cheaper and it is more affordable, especially if they make one really playable set and they don't put any valuable cards. So people stay away from it, but players still want it. So then you would fix that. Then you would have people panic buying anything. Well, they wouldn't panic buy it because they've made a press release saying they're printing at maximum capacity. And then finally, people who want to invest in One Piece, they can actually buy it at reasonable prices. Right now, the only people that these prices are benefiting are the people who hold on to One Piece. Now, I want to be clear. I hold on to One Piece boxes. Don't get me wrong. I like seeing my boxes go up. But I also don't like seeing boxes go up this rapidly, this quickly, while being a very long time in print. So there's a difference between OP01 technically still being in print because it is in rotation. There's a difference between that and then OP13, which literally came out like 2 months ago. There's a very big difference. So when you get to these kind of prices, it's not really enjoyable for anybody. You can invest in these prices and you will do good in the long run. But if history has shown us investing at these prices means you're very likely buying at the near top. I'm not saying that we are at a top, but you've got to think what's more likely. OP13 doubles and goes to 2,000. But I'm not saying I'm not saying we're at the top. I don't want to call a top. Calling a top is very difficult in a bull market. But at the same time, I don't think that we're far from a top. And every single time with collectibles, people always say the same thing, that this time's different, that this time it's going to hold its price, this time there's not going to be a crash. And every single time there always is some sort of pullback. It happens every single time. So that's what I feel about this situation. Hopefully they can fix the situation. This is not really enjoyable for anybody. If you do hold on to One Piece boxes, my best advice would probably be, it just depends how mentally strong you are. If you can hold it for years on end, it being down, then yeah, I mean, you can buy these prices. If you are thinking, should you take profit? Not really a horrible time to offset a couple boxes. I mean, even I offset a couple boxes just so that my current position is completely free, so I don't have to actually worry about, even if it goes down, it doesn't really matter. And then if it goes up, great. So there is always, like, there's never anything wrong with just offsetting your entry point. But I also wouldn't recommend you sell everything, and then I also wouldn't recommend you go all in. Just really think through decisions before you make them, and don't sell your entire position. In my opinion, even if it does go down in the future, it doesn't matter because these boxes are still really high quality. The TCG is still a really good TCG and it'll still do really good in the future. So I don't think it's worth just selling everything and abandoning ship. So yeah, but that's just my opinion on One Piece right now. What do you guys think? What's your opinion? How do you think they can solve it? Let me know in the comment section.